Oh, right, where to begin? Look, there was a lot going on in Britain around the kind of turn of the 60s and 70s, right? 69 into the 70s.
Do people say that? Like
What?
turn of the decade? Is that a thing? Or did
I
you just
don't see
invent
why they
it?
wouldn't.
Okay.
Turn of the century, turn of the decade.
I'm
Yeah.
willing to accept it.
Well, I'm more willing to accept that than I am apricot. Put it like
Oh,
that.
all right. Calm
Right?
down.
You calm down.
I no longer accept turn of the decade. I've
All
changed
right,
my
fine.
mind.
Look, there was like I said, a load going on in the UK, late 60s, early 70s. Eh, I don't think it's a stretch to call it a period of some kind of societal awakening, perhaps, societal
Oh, okay.
transformation.
hmm
There was a
An
lot
upheaval,
of,
if you will.
if you will, there was a
Mm,
lot of media and a lot challenging kind of preconceived ideas of, let's say, moral codes,
mm.
traditional kind of family structures, patriarchy. Um, I'm talking about, I don't know if you've heard of a magazine called Oz.
I don't
Uh,
think so. Oz.
it,
OZ.
Oz, OZ, yeah. It actually found itself at as the subject of an obscenity trial in Britain
Oh.
during that period, but it was a kind of a countercultural symbol.
hmm
Then, of course, you had Jermaine Greer, who was working hard to kind of challenge gender roles.
Mm.
There was a lot going on in terms of themes of sexuality, identity, uh, communities that one might identify with and belong to. There was a
Sure.
lot going on in terms of challenging establishment ideals of what is right, what is normal, what is, there was a lot of pushback, youth led, art, music.
Mm-hmm.
There was, literature was encouraging almost challenges to authority. There was a lot of protest going on against,
Yeah.
war.
Counterculture.
You got it. You got
Yeah.
it. But it's very interesting to me, and I think it's as true now as it was then, that where there's cultural movement, there are those who will seek to co-opt that for
Mm-hmm.
their own ends.
Sure.
Um, on a different scale to what I'm about to talk about, but I see that piece about Shell advertising within Fortnite has
Oh,
really
yes, right.
fucking stuck in my brain like a shard, right? I
Yeah, you've brought
can't,
it up a few times.
I,
It
fuck me. That is,
irks you on a
oh
cellular
God,
level.
it really does. It's the most overt example of trying to ride the coattails of something for nefarious
Right.
ends that I
Yeah,
think I can
totally.
remember within my lifetime. It's fucking awful. And I think that same shard, for many different reasons, sticks in my head about what I'm about to talk to here, right?
Okay.
That openness that I've talked about, that counterculture, kind of a clarion call for things like liberation and acceptance. Within that, there was one group in particular with altogether weirder and more sinister motives working, right?
Hmm.
Amidst that language of expression and freedom and rights and acceptance. Um, a different group entirely took form, right? Started off in Scotland,
Okay.
okay? A group in Scotland called the SMG, the Scottish Minorities Group. Now, this was a group that was all about advocating for gay rights in Scotland, okay?
Okay. Sure.
But within that group, within the SMG, a a faction of people with a pedophilic
Oh
inclination.
no.
Oh, I'm fucking telling you.
Mm.
And that's where this is going. They used that group and saw an opportunity within that group to use it to kind of advance their own agenda,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
almost under the safety net, the cover of broader kind of sexual and gender liberation, right?
Right.
And that led to a splinter group being formed known as the PIE,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Corrigan, the PIE was the Pedophile Information Exchange.
Ooh, nope. Don't like it already.
Oh,
Yikes.
yeah.
I do
I'm
not
fucking
want
serious.
any information being exchanged amongst pedophiles, if at all possible.
Yeah. And when I tell you how incredibly, disturbingly, and uncomfortably deep that group managed to insinuate themselves in
Oh.
British society, it's really something.
This is very interesting that this is the topic that you chose today because I was literally right before this, I turned off a YouTube video I'd been watching for the past 90 minutes that was
Mm,
about To Catch a Predator.
okay.
The Have you ever heard of To Catch a Predator?
Absolutely. Chris Hansen, yes.
Chris Hansen, yes, exactly. And it was a whole video I was watching about that show, and obviously, with a critical eye on it, why it did not do
Yep.
what it purported it was trying to do, and so forth.
Yep.
But just interesting that you brought up the same topic
Mm.
that I have just been watching
It's
something
that
about.
transatlantic joag
No,
synchronicity in
it's
full
crazy.
display, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I don't spend a lot of time watching shit about pedophiles, so we're just synced up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't spend a great deal of time on it.
No, it's not like unless you are doing something to like help with it, it is just
Exactly.
there's no good that comes from obsessing over
Yeah,
something so horrific.
yeah, exactly this. As the PIE did. Their first chairman was a guy by the name of Michael Hansen. He was the kind of quite a young guy, a guy in his kind of mid-20s, and he envisioned that group as, quote, a support and rights organization
Okay.
for adults with a sexual predilection towards children. And the kind of it gathered speed. It moved to London when it started to expand through a postal network. It started to send out a newsletter and realized that most of its inquiries, most of the volume of people communicating with this network were coming from London. So they moved down to
Mm.
London. Uh, the leadership was succeeded by a guy by the name of Keith Hose, who was quite a very articulate guy. Uh, like I said, they relocated to London in 1975, and this guy, Keith Hose, in his 20s, became the chairman. And their approach from the outset was to kind of seek legitimacy
Hmm.
by kind of affiliating themselves or trying to move themselves in with already established organizations who were seeking, championing civil liberties. Um, currently they're called Liberty, but there was a group called the NCCL, the National Council for Civil Liberties, and they were an advocacy group who were fighting against overreach from the government against
Sure.
minority rights, right?
So it's
And
like the ACLU here would probably be, sounds like is the
ACLU,
equivalent thing. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. And
yes,
basically, if any rights are infringed upon, even if it's something that like they don't really believe in, like it can be a right wing thing or
yep,
whatever, but they will fight for
yes,
like anyone being oppressed
yeah,
in.
exactly
Yeah.
this. That's what Liberty does. Um, and the PIE presented itself as another minority group, another
Right.
activist group of misunderstood kind of minorities, and used the NCCL's kind of pillars of free speech and tolerance to start to work within their framework, within their already established organization. Now, their core aim, the PIE's core aim, was fucking incredibly audacious. Their one kind of core objective was the abolition of the age of consent within the UK,
Ooh, yeah.
right? That was openly what they were advocating and what they were fighting for. They would argue ridiculously that kids were capable of giving informed consent
Hmm.
and framed their arguments in that kind of framework of personal freedom, civil liberties.
Right.
But of course, in private, as it will probably come as no surprise, the reality of it was members exchanging obscene materials,
Sure, of course.
criminal materials,
Hmm.
and sharing strategies on how to access fucking vulnerable children.
Right.
Now, despite the kind of that face of respectability and acceptability and working with established organizations, as you can imagine, in the early years at least, they operated in relative obscurity. They would have
Sure. Yeah, of
meetings.
course.
They would have meetings in kind of rented community spaces, in private residences, under the kind of auspices of being innocuous kind of discussion groups and
Yes, of
fucking
course.
think tanks and talking shops. Um, Members were introduced through, trusted members, members who were already on the inside. By recommendation, they took many, many steps to kind of minimize outside infiltration. Meetings would take the format of, group discussions, presentations on air quotes, research,
Hmm.
strategy sessions to kind of push their agenda and advance their ideas. It was the guys I mentioned earlier on, Michael Hansen, Keith Hose, would often kind of chair those meetings, setting the direction for the activities for the months
Right.
ahead for the group. Um, and they had a newsletter, right? Communication was facilitated through a newsletter called Magpie, which was
Oh, that's
distributed.
I don't like
It's
a magpie pie being used that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, talk about co-opting. Um,
Good
but this
grief.
this newsletter would contain kind of coded language. It would contain kind of coded phraseology sent through the
Sure, of
post.
course. Yeah.
And this kind of approach let them continue operating under a facade of legitimacy while
Hmm.
expanding its influence. And through the 70s, kind of through the mid to late 70s, they kind of leveled up almost from a fringe kind of advocacy group into quite a confident and highly organized
Right.
entity. They recruited, or they elected a new chairman, a guy by the name of Tom O'Carroll, in the late 70s, and this guy was an academic. He used to work
Mm,
for the Open University. He was media trained. He was, articulate and utterly blasé and unrepentant
right.
about his his beliefs.
Right.
Um, he fucking published a book in 1980, Pedophilia: The Radical Case,
Oh
a
God.
manifesto um through which he attempted to kind of normalize pedophilia as a legitimate sexual orientation. I mean,
Mhm.
as opposed to, like I say, as opposed to a paraphilia requiring treatment,
Right.
something which he believed and insisted on being legitimized.
Right. Yeah. And we've talked obviously about like, there are paraphilias that it's fine. Like
Oh,
nobody's hurt
listen,
if you want
harm
to
no
fuck your
one.
car or
Of
whatever,
course,
right?
go to
But
it.
obviously the issue here is that there is someone else on the other end of this. And when
Yes,
it comes to sexual orientation, obviously
yes,
consent is a huge part of it. Doesn't matter what your
yes,
sexual orientation is, you need to be doing it with someone who is
yes,
consenting. And, it does not count when it is children,
yes. And
period.
you know, let's be fucking clear here. The existence of this organization had more than abstract harm, right?
Right.
Deeply, deeply personal damage. The PIE's network was, individually guilty of facilitating horrific abuse.
Yeah.
And that's what the PIE was all about. It was a kind of almost an internal support group for one another,
Hmm. Yeah, and
to
reassuring each other that it's fine. Like
exactly
actually,
this,
you're not hurting anybody. These kids are totally okay.
exactly this.
They want it just as much as you do, and we're all
Yep.
in this together.
Yes, 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 yes. And what staggers me is the kind of the infiltration of
Mm.
institutions that the PIE were able to get away with. Like I said, that Tom O'Carroll, the guy had held positions in education.
Ugh.
They had members in social services. They had members working for fucking child welfare
While they
charities.
were open, or like were these
Yeah,
people kind of, oh, see, that's crazy.
yes.
It's
I mean,
bananas.
individual members, I'm certain, wouldn't have openly declared their membership
Right.
of the PIE, but the PIE as an institution, the PIE
Hmm.
as an organization was, loud and proud.
Okay. So like individuals might not have
Yes,
bit like if it was your job to be the head of this organization or whatever, then you would be out and loud about it, but you could be an educator and be a
of
part of
course.
it. You just probably wouldn't say so.
Well, exactly. Magpie was delivered under plain
Right.
packaging.
Hmm.
The kind of the communication was still very much under wraps and
Right.
coded.
Hmm.
But as an organization, they grew bolder under O'Carroll's leadership.
Right.
Um, They also they also had a kind of a degree of, I guess, political cover
Hmm.
through its association within the NCCL. Um,
NCCL.
yeah, the National Council for Civil Liberties that I talked
Oh,
about
right, right,
earlier
right.
on,
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
right?
Got it. I'm back
That
with you.
that gave them a kind of political kind of legitimacy.
Sure.
Um, you know, a very prominent civil liberties organization. They talked about free speech, privacy rights, protections against, like I said, state overreach. And they had a very broadly kind of, would you say, libertarian approach to
Hmm. Yeah.
matters of sexual freedom,
Hmm.
and that was what the PIE exploited,
Right.
presenting themselves as they did, like as a misunderstood kind of minority rights group. Now, other political figures within the UK were also involved with the NCCL.
Hmm.
Um, Harriet Harman, for example, who remained a prominent Tory well into my lifetime.
Okay.
uh, Jack Dromey, Patricia Hewitt, very heavily involved with civil liberties. And
From like
th
both sides, or is it pretty much all Tories who were involved with this?
that's a great question. Um, and I don't know the answer. My inclination
Okay.
is to go, Tories, but I'll hold back on
Sure.
that
Yeah.
because I'm
But
I'm
those
not
ones you
certain.
listed were Tories.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
indeed. Um, and these guys had kind of roles. They were like legal officers of the NCCL, general secretaries, and there have been inquiries and reports on this, which I'll talk about shortly. But and obviously publicly, they've completely disavowed any support
Of
for the
course.
group and for their agenda.
Hmm.
But you know, correspondence that has come to light through kind of inquiries and reports shows that PIE members were able to submit agenda items and motions
Wow.
to NCCL conferences.
Wow.
It was listed at one point as an affiliate organization
Yeesh.
in
Ay,
NCC. I'm not
ay.
fucking kidding. It's incredible
How do you
how this
play
was
that
allowed.
off?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
someone wasn't paying attention in the office. Yeah, sure. We'll partner with anybody. Like,
It's that commitment to free speech and to
hmm.
expression and to representation,
Right.
and that kind of cloak of respectability and legitimacy that PIE tried to give itself, that
Hmm.
allowed it to be tolerated, I guess, within advocacy
Right.
groups. And they managed to maintain their operations all the way through the 70s, holding meetings, distributing their literature, lobbying lawmakers, all while dodging significant kind of legal reproductions. There were articles, though, right? It was when the press got hold of it
Hmm.
that the shit went rightly south for them.
Right.
Uh, fucking hell, scum, of course, though they are, and piss on their grave, though I do. The News of the World in '82 uh, began publishing some in-depth exposés about the group's activities.
Mm.
They properly went in. They revealed names, faces, evidence, headlines, the evil world of the pedophile information exchange, how these monsters operate in plain sight. Absolutely
Mm.
no fucking around where
Yeah.
maybe official bodies and government bodies might have tiptoed around it for
Right.
fear of free speech, being infringed. News of the World went right in. Um, published internal communications from the PIE, right? Quotes from some of these documents that were published. Quote from an internal memo. We must continue to push the narrative of children's consent being valid. Society is simply not ready to understand our cause yet.
Mm.
Always ensure plausible deniability in correspondence. Never leave identifiable traces.
Hmm.
Fucking horrific,
Yeah.
horrible, horrible
It's yeah,
shit.
it's like so sleazy, just
Yes.
knowing what you're doing and how you're trying to
Yes.
manipulate public
Yes.
opinion and how you can get
Duplicitous.
around the laws and all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff. You know, nobody thinks that that's true. Like
No
that's the thing
one.
that gets me is like people. I think there was a movie a while back, and I may have mentioned this in another one of ours, but with Kevin Bacon called The Woodsman. Did you ever see that?
The
He played a
Woodsman. No.
pedophile in that.
I
Um,
saw Sleepers with Kevin Bacon. I think he was a wrong one in that too, wasn't he?
Maybe I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but it doesn't sound like the same kind of film. But
Okay.
the movie sort of brought brought up like basically that like one of the problems when it comes to how we approach pedophilia
Yep.
is like because of the extreme nature of like that crime and stuff like that, they're sort of ostracized,
Yep.
and attitudes towards people pedophiles is rightfully
Yep.
disdainful and
It's
loathsome,
visceral, isn't it? Yeah.
visceral, and because everyone knows that it is wrong and devastating for children to experience. The thing that
Yep.
the movie sort of tries to approach is the fact that we don't treat it then,
Yep.
and we don't have support systems
Yes.
for people who are pedophiles. Instead, it's just sort of like push them to the edges of society, expose who they
Yes.
are, make sure that like everyone who sees them on the street boos them and throws rocks at them, and like that's it. And then it's like, what are they gonna do? They're just gonna like keep doing it because
Yes.
the only people
Yep.
that don't do
The
this are children.
understand. Yeah, sure,
uh,
sure, sure.
and I think that is a valid thing to deal with, right? Like it's complicated, and I think it is rightfully reviled behavior. But if we don't want people to do it, we may have to deal with our
Yes.
revulsion and moral outrage and support them. That
I
said,
go on.
no one who does this thinks that kids enjoy it or want it.
Mm,
There's no one who does this is like, yes, this is absolutely a thing that like we are having this great adult relationship here and this happens to be a child. Like
sure.
that is you might be able to try to justify that to yourself, but
Yeah.
when you're lying to yourself, you know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right? So like and that's the thing is it's like everything in those like internal communications and everything that's not about how they really feel about it. It's how
Yep.
they are trying to manipulate the law, manipulate the public,
Mm,
whatever else in order to continue to do abuse, which they know is abuse.
yes. And I won't lie about the fact that that angle of this condition is it grips me, right?
Hmm.
I can't think of another condition whereby because it's a wiring thing, yes.
Right, exactly. Like that's the thing is, nobody's like a thing I would really love to be as a pedophile.
Yeah, exactly. No one chooses that.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but I can't think of another condition whereby your what you experience as innate physical urge is abhorrent.
I mean,
The fucking
psychopaths are like
well,
that too.
yes, yes, yeah,
People
but
with
in the
personality
kind of
disorders.
psychosexual realm,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't, that's the thing is it's not that like uncommon in terms of like personality disorders and things like that though, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there are a ton of people who get off on physically abusing
yes,
people.
yes.
And it's like not, I mean, obviously there's trauma involved in a lot of that too. People experience things growing up and that shapes them, right? But like,
But I'm certain I'm right in saying that
yeah.
for people who are given to a sexual proclivity towards abuse and
Hmm.
violence, there are treatment paths
Mm-hmm.
that I'm as certain as I can be don't exist or aren't as available
Right.
as for those with pederastic tendencies.
Yeah. And I wonder how much that is like just simply that we don't try,
Yeah,
that a lot of our approaches to that have been like chemical castration and things
yeah.
like that, as opposed to actually like attempting to rehabilitate people. Because you think of stuff like borderline personality disorder, for example, is often considered like untreatable.
Mm,
It's not. It's just extremely difficult to treat borderline personality disorder. And at the
yes.
core of it is that you are changing behaviors, right? You can't change the thought patterns really. You can
Yep,
interrupt them.
yep,
You
yep,
can,
yep, yep. Pattern
get
recognition.
people,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
get people to understand that they're doing a thing and stop it. But their mind, everything inside them is still telling them they want to do that thing. It's
Yes.
just you can teach them to recognize this is harmful. It's impacting me negatively. It's impacting those people negatively. I have to nip that in the bud before it becomes an
Mm,
issue, right? And that's probably the case here, right? Is like you may not be able to get people to stop being attracted to children,
yes.
but I'm sure that there are ways in which, and I'm sure there are therapies and stuff like that that people are trying to do this. But broadly, the ways in which we approach this have to be kind of like that, like where you can't change the thought, but can you change, the can you stop it? Can you get people to understand the thought pattern and
Yeah.
stop it before it goes
Even
further?
more kind of incredible and damaging then in this case, when for so long there was allowed to be a network of enablers,
Right.
a network
Mm-hmm.
of internal advocates
Yeah.
for these behaviors, which was at least on the surface level being endorsed by civil liberties
Yeah.
organizations
Ugh.
that
Yeah,
had
that's hard to get
tendrils.
past.
Isn't it fucking
Mm-hmm.
wild? That had its tendrils in potentially in government.
Mm-hmm.
And there were kind of allegations from internally, from within government, that funding from the government, thanks to kind of a kind of a lackadaisical approach to tracking and to finding out the destination of where funding had ended up. There were
Mm-hmm.
allegations that government funding that had been given to other civil liberties groups had been channeled towards the PIE. So there was the
Mm.
suspicion, which was deemed there was no kind of proof of this in
Yeah.
a report was published in 2022, right? The IICSA, a committee for child sexual abuse, um, published a report on this entire affair in 2022, right? Examined the PAE's operations, the kind of links it had to other institutions, and these allegations about funding directly from the Home Office.
Mm.
Crazy shit. And the suggestion was that funds, like I said, intended for other support initiatives
Right.
had been badly monitored and
Right.
had allowed PAE to exploit those and to benefit from government
Yeah.
funding. That's
That's
fucking.
incredible.
Uh, and again,
Oh, go ahead.
go on, please.
Well, it's maybe an aside, but I am curious. Like, what is like your age of consent in Britain?
16.
Okay, see, like that's a child,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like that's so like an adult can have sex with a
Yeah.
16-year-old, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, just to this point, I think what is also interesting about that is like, so like child sex abuse is legal in the United Kingdom for all intents and purposes because you can have sex with a child, a high school kid, and not go to jail for it, right?
Yes.
And there are places in
Yeah.
America
From a
that are
certain
like
angle,
that
yes.
as well. We don't have a federal age of consent. There are states here that like the age of consent is like 14. Not very many of them. I think there's like
Really?
three. Yes. And people fight for this all the time that like, teenagers should be able to get married and things like that, right? In fact, I may be using this when I say age of consent wrong. I think sex, it might technically be 18
Yeah.
everywhere, but you can get married at like 14 and it overrides that, right? And I think that's also like such a fascinating element of this is that on the one
Wait a second.
hand,
Back the fuck up.
yeah,
Right. So, and again, I'm demonstrating my patchy understanding of US legislation here, right?
right.
federal law is nationwide law, yes? Is that
Right.
right?
Yes.
And in federal law, the age of consent to sexual activity is
I don't think there is one. So I
ah,
think that is states. I'm not positive on that. If I have not researched this, so I could be incorrect on that. But as far as I know, I don't think there is a federal one. It is a state thing. Um, and thus, like,
ah,
as we talk about this, I was just thinking like we take such a hard line and we talk about it as if everyone is on board with this. And yet, your
yeah.
country's age of consent is child. It's still child. Like, there are places all over this country. I mean, even 18 is still kind of a kid, but like it's an adult, right? You can vote and you can buy
Well, yeah,
lottery
it's
tickets. But like
often said that yeah, you can consent to sexual activity and whatnot before you can buy a pint, before you can fucking
exactly. Like
yeah,
that is I think, interesting to examine in and of itself, right? Like,
sure,
even as we talk about how reviled pedophiles are and all of that kind of stuff, it's still not illegal in your country and in a good chunk of mine, or in at least a small part of mine. And that I think that there is this weird sort of sense that it's not the same thing to argue that a teenager should be able to consent that it is for an 8-year-old or whatever, but like it is. It
yes.
absolutely is. um and so it just occurred to me right now that I'm like, it's bonkers that we talk about this way, and yet we do still allow it societally, and we aren't
It's
like out there in the streets making a thing of it.
my jaw has kind of dropped a little that there's no federal age of consent in the States. I'd
Again,
love.
I'm not sure. I could be wrong here. Don't don't quote me on this. Let me Google it real fast
I'm doing
just
that
to.
right now. Each US state, the age of consent in the United States varies by state and is between 16 and 18 years old.
Yeah, the
So,
federal age of consent is 18, but it only applies in certain
okay.
circumstances.
So there are plenty of states where it's 16.
Probably not plenty. No, I think most
One,
are
two, three, four,
18.
five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Well,
10
more
out
than
of
10.
50.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so that's 10 at least states. I just saw New York is 17. That was surprising to me.
Mm.
Um, that the pedophilia is legal, essentially. That's a thing I'm gonna be
That's
sitting with,
certainly a take. Yes, yes, yes.
right? Because like the law doesn't determine it, right?
Mm.
Like, if that were the case, then, if we look back in history, all the people who were married off at those ages, were at like 10. Nothing
Mm.
wrong with that if the law determines whether it's okay or not. But they are children, and that's troubling to think about.
I'm troubled, and I've got many
Like,
thoughts. So what's the
yeah.
fucking
Do you
answer?
think in
I
three
mean,
years Pete's gonna be an adult?
fuck no.
Like
Oh,
that's troubling. That's super
just to
troubling.
kind of cap off the PIE saga, they
Mm.
disbanded in '84,
Oh, good.
and
Before I
only
came along.
one, only one of that entire organization saw jail time. Uh,
Jeez.
the guy I mentioned, what was his name? What was his fucking Tom O'Carroll? He did 2 years for sharing obscene material and outraging public decency.
Unreal. I mean, I'm
Nobody else
sure
saw
more
jail.
members did jail time, just not for their involvement in that organization.
Yes, 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 yes.
Likely. And they never like resurfaced as anything else. That whole thing is,
Well,
over.
the report that came out in 2022 uh it made plenty of recommendations, like things like mandatory reporting laws.
Hmm.
So, it made it less easier to kind of close ranks.
Hmm.
Um, this improved safeguarding policies, redress for victims, that kind of thing. Um, but hey, what came along soon after that? The good old internet,
Right.
you
Made it a
know?
moot point in many
Yes,
ways. They
yes,
came up with other forms of networks and didn't need to be risking
yes.
themselves doing that.
Yes, it's as far as I can discern, the last and hugest example of that kind of internal support network and advocacy network
Right.
for abhorrent practices.
I feel less bad about telling you about Italian patriarchy now.
Yes, coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
2025,
Woo!
my friends.
All right. Good work, Marco.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, take us there, Skitch.
And I'm not kidding. Listen, you said it yourself
Mm,
to in the kind of the hard yards of December there. I do, as regular as the clock,
mm,
react badly to January. And it
yeah.
has come along. I wasn't expecting it to come along as quickly as it has. I was hoping for a little bit of, that New Year afterglow,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
maybe carry
I don't think
myself
that's
into
a thing,
January on that cloud of positivity and hope for the
right?
future. And
That's my thing.
none of that has happened. None of that has happened, right? It
Right.
is, as I speak, January the 5th, and I
Mm.
am doughy, yeah, and
You're
pale.
not doughy.
I
You
am
may be a little
doughy
pale.
and pale, and I have no motivation to do anything. I'm hoovering
Mm.
up remaining chocolate and fucking carbohydrate
Someone's got to do
saturated
it.
food. No, 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 no. Someone doesn't have to do it. I'm fucking doing it voluntarily, right? Nobody's got a gun to my head. Like that guy from Seven,
Right.
right? I'm doing it purely of my own volition, and I fucking hate it and
Mm.
me, right? So that's where I am.
Mm.
However, we
Mm.
continue,
We
right?
too. We soldier on.
We continue. What am I going to do? Nothing. Um, and listen, I am giving myself kind of a hard time here. It was only 3 days ago that I ran 16
Yeah.
kilometers. You know what I
Seriously.
mean?
Yeah.
Three
I think
fucking
you can eat a
days.
couple crisps after that.
I can help myself to an apricot or two, a chocolate covered apricot.
You could
You
have
guys
a
say
whole
apricot?
carton of apricots.
Carton of apricots. Yes, that's a carton of apricots to our British listeners. But anyway, fuck 2025
Okay.
and fuck January and
Mm.
fuck the rain and the sleet
Ooh.
and fuck the dark and the cold and fuck me. Welcome to Jack of all Graves. It's lovely to have you here.
Oh,
Uh,
you got like such a nice little bit of snow before it turned to grossness. It was I saw all over all my social media all the Brits being like, "Oh, it's snowing. It's so beautiful." And then this morning like,
yeah,
"God damn it, it's so mucky
8 hours
gross
later,
out."
it was just slurry. Hey,
Yeah,
listen,
that is the worst.
and it was a lovely evening,
Hmm.
as darkness descended and the first kind of flakes
Mm,
na, na,
I
na,
love that.
na,
So
na, 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 na,
majestic.
started to kind of just drift down from the sky, and it gathered and it was crisp, and it
Mm,
was
yes, you can like
virgin
smell
and
snow in
white.
the air.
Oh, you can.
So
And
good.
I don't think there is another sound as just beautiful and sonorous and rich and complicated as that first crunch of a
Hmm.
layer of snow. Isn't that a
Yeah,
beautiful
it's so
sound?
good.
There's
Mm.
nothing
We're
else
supposed
like
to
it.
get it on Saturday, maybe on Monday or Tuesday as well, but Saturday we're supposed to get a couple inches for sure. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I look forward to that nice crunch. What? What? What did I do?
You're gonna get a couple inches, huh? All
Oh,
right. Bum, 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 bum. Anyway,
God damn
how
it.
are you? Are you good?
I'm
In a
great.
better
Thank
place?
you.
Listen, hang on. Ah,
Um,
fuck that. Are you good, listeners?
mm,
Are you doing okay?
yeah, all right out there. Everything
Because I
going along.
know it can be tough, can't it?
Mm, hmm.
When you're still bloated from the forced fucking merriment
Mm.
and the horrific voices of your family are still echoing in your canals, in your head, and in your soul.
Um,
You can still hear your fucking mum, or your partner's mum, or your fucking kids, or their kids. Meh. You know what I mean?
mm.
The decorations are down, and your house is cavernous and
Did you take
empty.
all your decorations down already?
They're gone, mate.
Oh, wow.
Fucking gone. The inflatable dinosaur outside.
Aw,
He's in a box, mate. He's in a fucking box in the shed
that
until next year. Found a caterpillar on him. That was the best bit about my
there was
week.
a caterpillar on
It
him.
was a lovely little
Aw.
caterpillar crawling along his nose.
You know a weird thing. Like, so obviously we've talked over the years about my odd phobias, right?
Mm.
And the various ones I've dealt with over the years and have gotten less. Bananas are still there, but not as strongly.
Example, give me an example. Just refresh our
It's
memories, won't
like
you?
elevators, for example. I
Okay,
don't like
that's not odd. I mean,
elevators.
I know a lot of people. A very, very good friend of
Okay,
mine
sure.
from South Wales who I work with is horrifically feared of elevators.
Yeah,
She will
they're the
not go in them.
worst.
Or lifts, sorry.
My sister got stuck in one and like did the whole thing where it was like only opened halfway and all that, like
Oh,
from but a few inches at the floor, and they had to like
ugh.
crawl out. And I was like, nope, no, 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 too many horror movies, can't do that.
I would John McClane it, and I would boost myself up through the roof
Sure,
of the lift and climb
I have
to the
two.
next floor
There's
on the
so many
ladder.
horrible things that happen in movies with
Not
that
to
too.
me.
I can't do it. Not the point. Caterpillars. Every now and again, I like develop one,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like not entirely sure where they come from. And caterpillars, I like the way they look, but I
Yeah.
have this weird fear of touching them that I
Mm,
didn't have when I was young. And I must have at
yeah.
some point, like some of them do have like spikes or things on them, but most of them just
Yeah.
look spiky and they're
Yep.
actually
Yep. Yep. Yep.
soft,
Yep. This
right?
was one of those. Looked spiky, looked like it had
So,
little kind
yeah,
of,
the softest, cutest little.
thorns, prickles coming out of it,
Yeah,
but it was super soft and
right.
it
They're like
moves with
nice
that
to
kind of
touch.
undulating
Ugh.
kind of motion with their bodies
Yeah.
and their little legs. And I
And
would
I don't
uh
trust them anymore, and I love that. Like they're just so
oh,
I like a
beautiful.
worm. I'll pick a worm up any day of the week, but a
Do you know,
caterpillar.
I paused while I was cleaning this fucking inflatable dinosaur, and I paused for a little bit just to play with this little caterpillar and have him walk across my hands. And when he
The
would
best.
get to the bump in between my one hand and the other, he would kind of lift his body
Yeah,
up
like
and kind of
rear up.
feel
Like,
exactly,
yeah.
feel around
Where's
the
the
place.
next thing? Mm-hmm.
Exactly, exactly. Um, and then I bit it in half with my teeth and sucked out its innards. No fucking metamorphosis for you. I'm
You're kidding, right?
joking. I placed it outside, tenderly on the floor, is what I did.
Oh, thank goodness. Like,
Yeah.
no, what a way to find out
No, no, no.
you're a sociopath.
That I'm a monster. No, I did not
I
do
was,
that. I gave it its freedom. Obviously, no doubt it went to feed a local,
well, right,
bird,
something else I'm sure ate it
but I gave
immediately,
it
but
back to the world, is what I did.
I'm reading this book right now, so well, not every year. This is a new tradition. I only started it last year from someone posted a thing that was like, have your friends recommend 12 books to you and read them this year.
Mm.
And so I put up a thing for this year's books, and Eileen recommended this one that she was like, it's got a lot of Joag overlap.
Oh.
And it's called fuck. Gory Details. Gory Details, not fuck. It's called Gory Details.
Nice.
And it's this woman who, much like us, like basically ended up on like a gross things beat where it's like she's just really fascinated by this stuff and she writes about it for other
Mm.
people who also are like morbidly curious about things or want to hear about disgusting stuff and all that. And one of the chapters of this book is about eating bugs and about how like technically we should all be doing it. Like it is
Oh,
like
yeah.
super sustainable, it's
Yep.
nutritious, like all of this kind of stuff, but it is so hard to get past the ick. Obviously, like biting into a live caterpillar is not what she's talking about
Owen is
here,
eating
but
bugs.
oh
Um,
really?
yes, annually at his school, they do something called International Week.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and one of the days in International Week is foods.
Yeah,
And he
we did
ate
that when I was a
crickets
kid.
and he's eaten mealworms,
Yeah.
and is very fond of talking about it.
Of course. Yeah.
Just
It's a good
he's
little like, little claim to fame, little
he's never
bragging
more than a
rights
moment or
thing.
two away from telling you he ate cricket.
Well, Keo got like into the concept of it, right? When we went to a party over 10 years ago now, my friend Vic, she had a party at her house in Santa Barbara and, it was full of like people who went to UCSB. She didn't, but there was a bunch of UCSB guys there and some of
Yeah,
them were like environmental science majors or something like that.
yeah,
And they brought like not only like crickets but like cricket flour for her to make stuff with, but and
yeah,
like
sure.
Keo got to try the crickets and he was like, this is very cool and stuff like that. So when the cicada brood came around, he was like, I'm gonna eat cicadas. But then they like never they never surfaced, so we never got
Never
to
showed
like
up.
eat a cicada.
Uh,
I don't like bugs in any form, so pass. But it is interesting that it is like, one of those things that's like it would be hugely beneficial to the world if we ate
Well, there's a
bugs.
lot of support for insects being our, what should be our next protein source.
Hmm.
A lot of good people, a lot of people saying that we need to do that.
Yeah, like the people of Snowpiercer, for example.
Yes.
uh, but yeah, I'm glad you didn't eat the caterpillar, and I wish this is like another resolution I should add is like stop being afraid of. I need like a caterpillar book that tells me which ones I can touch and which ones I will regret, and then maybe things will work out differently because I do
Despite
love a
being
caterpillar.
a man who is enamored of his creature comforts,
Mm,
I don't fear bugs. I will
really?
happily. Oh, I love a bug. Love a bug.
Oh man,
I've eaten a
I'm
spider and a
jealous of
moth
that.
before now whilst drunk, but
Oh, I do
this was
remember you
this was
saying the moth button.
this was before I read about the Australian guy who ate the slug. You don't fucking not
Yeah,
doing that
now you
again.
won't make that mistake
Fuck no.
again. No, I
Oof.
can't. I don't like the leggies are just too much. I
Mm.
think this is also it's a textural nightmare thing on top of it all.
Yeah, sure, I get that.
Yeah, I think it all kind of stems from that, but I don't want to touch them. I don't want to look at them. I try to talk myself out of it, like when something is not
Mm.
rational. Like that can't hurt me. Like
Nope.
what it
It's
like
more scared of you.
right. But it's you've seen our scary bathroom in the basement and it often has cave crickets in it and stuff
Oh,
like that. And I'm like it's fine. It's not and then I'll be like I'm just gonna turn the water on to scare it or whatever and then it'll jump and I'm like nope. I'll run upstairs and leave
mm.
the water running. Like don't like it.
I think I'm right in saying that one of the reasons why the aliens in District 9, why Blomkamp settled on the slur for them being prawn, was because
Hmm.
they resemble a South African indigenous insect commonly known as the Parktown prawn. Look up one of
Ah.
those motherfuckers for me if you
I
would.
don't want to. I don't even
Wow.
like looking at real prawns, like regular seafood prawns. Nope.
The
Don't like
the
it.
Parktown prawn is like a turbo cricket. Um,
Like a
and
weta.
exactly this, yes.
Hmm.
And when you tread on them, by all accounts, they push back on your
No.
shoe.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah, 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 yeah. They can jump up to eye height and squirt kind of fecal matter at you. They're an absolute
No.
fucking
What a
beast of an
nightmare.
insect.
No, I don't.
I'll share one. I'll put one on the Facebook
Oh, good.
if
Great.
you're all interested.
Everyone can see the prawn.
Yes.
I don't. Anyways, it's neither here nor there.
No.
Uh, our decorations are still up, but Keo did say he's going to take them down before he leaves for his next job on Saturday. So I'll be a little sad about that. But also, we have a chair sitting in the middle of like our entryway because we had to move it for the Christmas tree. So it'll be nice to live
Yes.
like civilized humans again.
A topic I just want to touch on, if I
Mm,
may. We
do
aren't a
it.
news podcast, we aren't a current events podcast, but we are charting
Mm,
the decline of man, aren't we?
we are, yes.
We're charting the decline of man, and we take note when humanity fails to learn its lessons. Yes.
We do that, yes.
We notice when patterns reemerge,
Hmm.
and uh, it, it, so again, fucking curses be upon his name. Have you spotted Elon Musk's meddling of late?
Ooh, which one?
In Britain, man.
Oh, I don't know if I knew that he was getting all up in your business.
Yes, he's dominated the news cycle for the past couple of
Mm,
days.
hmm.
With his uh jibes and his shots and his ill-informed kind of input into our politics.
Mm,
And there was a lot of speculation about, it was mentioned that he's planning on making a sizable kind of monetary donation to
hmm.
reform
Of
the
course.
fringe fucking far right jokers who are making a grab for legitimacy. Um, and it the way that our news, in particular the BBC, is covering this is deeply unsettling to me, right? Because
Hmm.
what this amounts to is nothing more than a bunch of tweets, right?
Right. Hmm.
He's called, Keir Starmer must go. We must have a new election. Da, 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 da. But the BBC are repeatedly referring to this as Elon Musk's intervention in British politics. The fuck
It's
it
just some
is.
dumbass on the internet.
Right? I've
Seriously?
said I've said time and time again that when you give cranks a platform, you're legitimizing cranks.
Hmm.
If I fucking stripped down to my underwear and walked through Bicester barking conspiracy theories about the government to strangers, would that be a political intervention? Would it?
Right.
Fuck. It would be
Yeah.
a dickhead talking dickhead shit.
Yeah.
And that's all Elon Musk is doing. But yet,
Yeah.
because of the size of his platform, all of his everything he has spoken about is it betrays a complete lack of understanding about how British politics works.
Right.
You know, you can't just throw out a government minister. You can't,
Right.
you know, the king can't dissolve parliament. Fuck that. None of that stuff is possible. But
Yeah,
this
he
is
does
stuff
that
he's
with
called.
ours too all the time. He's constantly
Yes,
calling for things. It's like the man's never read a book or anything in his life. You know,
exactly
he's
this.
just saying shit.
But the news calls that Elon Musk has intervened in British politics. How has he?
Right. Mm.
You know, and again, this all feels to me, it's got that ring of a future GCSE history question. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
In
Right.
30 years' time, they'll be asking, talk about the circumstances arising from Elon Musk's intervention in British politics. And labeling it as such is just helping it.
Right.
All
Yeah.
that is doing is lending legitimacy to him fucking talking shit
Yeah.
to
He
his
should just be like some dumbass CEO or whatever, but we just keep on covering him as if
exactly this.
anything he says is legitimate. He's just
Exactly this.
taking ket and ranting, and
Yeah.
that's not news or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like just accept it is a man on drugs who is saying stupid ass shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah. And
lackeys.
yeah, so I had to get that off my chest. It really winds me up the legitimacy that the news offers this guy's fucking farting out tweets like it's
Yeah,
some kind of like it means anything. It means nothing.
right. Yeah. I have been enjoying though the thing with Elon's alt, which there's a few people who are trying to say it's not an alt. That's him. We've done some deep diving into it. And it's really they've discovered there's like a guy. So he's been allegedly people say that Elon
Mm.
has been using an alt named Adrian Dittman
Yeah,
to
yeah.
basically defend himself for things but pretend it's somebody else. And there was a Twitch stream playing Fortnite that he went on the other day. And you know, Adrian Dittman's supposed to be in his 20s and all this kind of stuff. And basically the streamer kept kind of like luring him into giving away his age and things like that, like by asking him about pop culture things. And this person had no pop culture references within the last 20 years. He like
Mm.
asked him about what he was doing on 9/11. He was like, oh, you know, just what anyone was doing, you know, or whatever. It's like, if you're in your 20s, you were barely sentient on 9/11,
Yes.
like, you know, basically all this stuff. And so, and it's like, it's unmistakably Elon's voice and his laugh when
Yes.
you listen to this too. You can watch the video. It's wild. But then there's like a couple articles that have come out like this is not Elon Musk. We've looked up Dittman and blah 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 blah. It's like there is apparently a person named this. But there's like no evidence that any of these articles have pulled out that Elon hasn't just like
Yeah.
yoinked his account stuff and been using it pretending he's him.
It's incredible.
Like it seems very clear it is. And if not, it's like wild that this guy has perfected his Elon
Mm.
voice and all of that kind of stuff. But I've been enjoying
Yeah.
watching that whole thing. It's like the one moment of like the only thing I think we've said this before, the only thing that we have in the face of these people who are going to like melt our earth while we're still on it is that at least they're giant dumbasses who know no joy.
Well, yeah,
You know,
that
like
speaks
just
exactly to my
watching
point.
them.
The
Yeah.
biggest weapon we have against him in particular is
Hmm.
mockery.
Is like literally like in most cases that's not the case. Calling Trump orange man or whatever doesn't help anything. But like genuinely, Elon Musk
Yes.
hates to be mocked more than anything else. And it's like you can pull his focus
Yeah.
from he spent 3 hours on a Twitch stream just
Pretending to
trying
be
to
someone
act
else.
like he's some other guy, some cool
Yeah.
guy who just like also thinks Elon Musk is a cool guy. And like that, you genuinely can distract him from his other evils by simply like making him defend himself.
Ah, right. I had to get that out. I had to get that out of my system.
Well, listen, we're about to get to the most wonderful time of the year. Void shout outs to
Ah,
our
yes.
dear Ko-Fi followers. So Mark, work on getting channel that void
Oh,
and
I've already
whatnot.
done that.
Oh,
I'm going to tell you
wonderful.
where
Okay,
my
great.
my sources have come from this time around.
Beautiful. But in the meantime, just before we get into that, FYI, lots of good stuff happening on the Ko-Fi, and
Mm,
we are on track. So, whatever January is doing to you, Mark, at least know we are doing super well with our Ko-Fi. Listen, we watched
nice.
our Snack to the Future movie last night. We watched Timecop. And
Fucking hell.
so so watch Timecop because that'll be coming anytime now. We will
Just
discuss
watch Time Cop.
just
Full
watch
stop.
Time Cop. Whether or
Uh,
not you're going to support us and listen to us talk about it, watch Time Cop.
without going into it now, it is a strange and beautiful piece of cinema. Time
Yes.
Cop.
What a weird, yeah, what a deeply weird film that
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And you should watch it if you've never seen it. Like Tony Khan always says,
And I
you
get
should definitely watch
it
Time
makes
Cop.
so much sense why that would be
hmm
the only billionaire that I think it's fine to like. Um,
Friends, if you're not an AEW fan, Tony Khan owns AEW, and he'll often come out between Dynamite and Rampage at the tapings and say to the audience something along the lines of, being here right now live with all of you, knowing you can also be watching this live at home, reminds me of my favorite movie, Time Cop. You guys ever seen Time Cop? Just
I think during one show, in between shows, he simply put the Time Cop poster on the fucking jumbotron, like with no
so
explanation at
just
all.
you all know
Fucking
what I mean.
awesome. So good.
It's just, and it
Let Time
always
Cop
seemed
do the talking.
nonsensical. And now that I've seen it, it is nonsensical, but it also makes perfect sense. So we will be talking about time cap. Time cap? Time.
Time
We're going to be
Cap.
talking about time cap on the
Fucking Time
Ko-Fi
Cap.
anytime now. So look out for that. A Let's
I would
Play
say it's the
coming.
best two-star movie I think I've seen in a while.
That seems fair. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
also realized this morning that I accidentally rated it 3. I was going for a 2.5 and I was like,
Yeah, I did
3,
wonder.
3
I,
is a lot.
I did
3
wonder.
is a lot of
Hey,
stars. Like, I
it's
watched Conclave and gave that 3.5. Surely Time Cop is not a half star from Conclave. So
well,
I
it won't
fixed
be the
it.
last disagreement we have about a movie on this episode, let me
No,
tell you.
it certainly will not. Um, but yeah, so that's coming. A Let's Play of Astrobot is
Oh,
coming. If
oh
you're like
God.
us and addicted
The
to this game.
the platinum is within sniffing distance. I've
Ooh.
almost platted it. I've got a
Man,
few more
I
trophies to get.
cannot get through those ones that are like you have to run until
You know what to
you
do?
yeah, it took me like an hour and change to beat one of those
Yep.
yesterday.
Just say
Uh
King of Games before you start
King
the
of
level.
Games. King of Games. That did not work. I finally after like 45 minutes of it I was like King of Games and then the next run it was like I slid straight off the edge of the thing. I was like, okay, that strategy is
I
not
love that
going
you
to
did
work for
that.
me. Listen, you made a suggestion. I was like, let's see. You never know. It didn't work.
King of Games.
So we will do an Astrobot Let's Play
Oh,
soon. Jack of All Graves Radio is coming back at
nice.
special request of Radio Free Montclair, who asked me to continue the show that I stopped doing a while back. So that will be up on the Ko-Fi. I'm super excited for the mailer that all of our top tier folks are going to get in March from my travels to Rome. It's
Mm,
pretty good. So I'm stoked on that. So if you're not subscribing to the Ko-Fi, you're missing out on a ton. So you should go ahead and do that, Spend a little Christmas money, that your
nice.
grandma gave you on the on the Ko-Fi, and enjoy it. And one of the other things you get from that is the void shout out. So
You
Mark,
sure do. All right.
would you like to would you
So
like to summon the void?
I have been communing
Mm.
with the ghost of Jimmy Carter.
Ooh, okay.
Ah,
Oh, here it comes.
I've been to see him
Ooh.
in the nether space
Mhm.
betwixt death and the afterlife. Some call it purgatory, some call it the void.
Mm.
And what Jimmy Carter has done is he's given me wisdom.
Oh, great.
Some of it is elliptical, some of it might not seem to make sense immediately.
I'm
But I
excited.
want you to follow it to the fucking letter. If you get a
Mm.
message from Jimmy, because that's what these are messages direct from Jimmy Carter.
Incredible. This is
And
you
it,
guys are so lucky right now. This is incredible stuff.
he used to be a peanut farmer, I hear
I've
tell.
heard that,
All right.
yes. Hmm.
Jimmy's peanuts. Eat Jimmy's peanuts.
That's just the general message, first and foremost, for all of our
Oh,
listeners. You
sorry,
didn't even have to subscribe for that one.
he was talking through me. I'm actually giving him, I'm opening up, I'm giving him access to myself.
Oh, it's beautiful. Let him in, let him in, let him in. Let him have that body, and let's use that voice to speak to
Give
our
me,
listeners.
give me names.
The first name, Jimmy,
Corrigan,
is Aaron.
Aaron. Do not speak. Do not speak to your family ever again
Oh,
during 2025. Don't speak to them.
oh no, that's my
God,
little sister.
Jimmy Carter says, isolate yourself from your family. They have nothing good to tell you.
Probably true. Fine, Jimmy. I'll
Give
allow
me
it.
no, give me more names.
Hannah.
Hannah, skip meals all the time. Eat when you are on the brink of unconsciousness.
Wow,
Hannah,
we're sure this is Jimmy Carter in there?
I am Jimmy Carter.
All right, if you say so.
It's
What about the Latours?
Ah, ah, I want you both to take everything personally this year. Whatever is said to you, it is intended as an insult. Take it to heart.
Oh,
Eat my peanuts.
how about
Eat.
little Jen?
Leave major decisions to chance. Flip a fucking coin. Roll a fucking dice, Jen. But
Wow. Jimmy
if
Carter doesn't know it's a die and not a dice. This is really
he means it in a plural sense, roll two of them, and that way you can blame the coin if it goes badly, you
metaphor is
know.
so mixed. How about for Melanie?
Let's see. Oh, sorry. Oh, come on, Jimmy. Melanie. Screen time is good time. You can get such good information from the internet. Rely on it for everything.
For our pal Anna of the Hell Rankers
Which Anna?
podcast.
Which one?
Hell Rankers Anna.
Right, Anna.
Jimmy Carter
Ah.
knows our listeners so well.
uh, can Anna drive?
I don't know.
Well, Anna, live in filth, nothing but filth. Keep everything messy and filthy. It is idiosyncratic and likable.
Cry laughing for can Anna drive?
Don't worry about it. live in filth.
How about good old Australian Dan?
Dan, if you have a pension, drain it for goods that you desire today. The
Always
future is
solid.
bullshit.
Mm,
The present is the only thing that matters.
it's a good point, Jimmy
Buy
Carter.
things with your pension.
For Nick.
Let's see. uh, fuck road safety, Nick. Just walk the fuck out into the road and you will be guided by Providence.
Okay. What
Yep.
about Lee?
Let's see, Lee. Grow out all your body hair, Lee.
Is that like a thing people have control over? Just growing
All of
out their
it.
body?
Don't cut your hair or shave.
Okay.
Let all of your body hair grow
Mm,
and
sexy.
let it control you.
There it is. Stephen Root.
Rootsy Collins. Uh, abandon hygiene, Stephen. Don't worry about your teeth or your smell. People will like it.
Can hang out with Anna in her filth.
Yes, yes, yes.
How about our girl Satania?
I want you to embrace deceit and lie about things from now on. Even shitty things and important things.
Just like everything.
Everything. Tell different lies to the same people. And if they love you, they won't mind.
How about Boff and Eileen?
Um, uh, Nothing you have learned will help you, Eileen. And you should start to study and live by pseudoscience. Homeopathy is a thing and it is real. I am Jimmy Carter.
Wow. All right. What about
Eat my
Rialda?
peanuts. Um, let's see. Fuck the clock and the calendar. Make up your own times and days for things. Do things when you want and turn up when you like.
Ooh, I love it. I'm on board for that.
Yes.
For sweet Emily.
Let's see. Let fucking chatbots design your wardrobe for you. Up Upload photos to them and say, hey, do I look cute in this? Uh, and let them guide your sartorial choices.
Worked for Cher Horowitz.
Who's that?
From Clueless.
Oh,
Come
okay,
on,
no shit.
Jimmy.
Sorry,
Get
Jimmy
your
Carter
roots.
has never seen that film. I'm 100 years old.
What about Brienne?
Let's see. Um, you can believe any old shit, and that includes people who call you and claim to be able to fix your computer viruses. Give them access to your accounts and passwords. It will do only good things.
So just unsolicited people. She should just give them
They're
all
not
her.
scammers. They have your best interests at
Of
heart.
course they do. What about for Richie?
Let's see. Uh, if oh, I fucking hate this. If someone offers you a compliment, it is a lie, Richie. They want to get in your good graces to manipulate you.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yep.
How about James B?
Oh, Jimmy B. Let's see. Do not trust the sun. Its light is deceit. Only the dark matters.
Jerry.
Oh, fuck. Jerry. Uh, the when you look in the mirror, Jerry, it's not you.
Oh
It's
no.
someone on the other side.
You should try and reach them, even if it means putting yourself in danger.
You heard him. Wouldn't want a doppelganger
How
taking over
many
your
more?
life.
How many more?
You've got a handful, my friend.
Okay.
Uh, for Brother Al.
Alan, everything you're doing is fine. Carry on, dude. You're cool. Love
Wow.
you.
Oh, it's nice, Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy
What
Carter loves you. Hey.
what about Richard?
Um, uh, ooh. If you have any goals to improve your fitness, you should not. You should actively sacrifice your fitness for short-term pleasures, smoking and ketamine and ecstasy. You should do all of
Wow.
that today.
What- was this part of Jimmy Carter's regimen
Yes,
every day?
it's why I lived so long.
How about for Keo Edmondson?
Keo, turn on the heating in the house and leave it on very high. In July.
Oh no,
It's good
disapprove.
for the critters in your basement.
Ugh. For Paul,
Which one, Paul? Oh God, my fucking voice.
Uh,
Paul.
um, Cryptic messages and riddles are the way to get your point across, even if they're shit. Just try and communicate in rhyme. Say methinks in sentences to people. It gives you an
Definitely.
air of mystique.
People love that. Only five more, Jimmy.
Okay,
Sam.
Jimmy Carter. Uh, uh, don't give anyone any help, Sam. Even the needy, if somebody directly approaches you asking for help, hold your hand up to their face. You're a busy man, an important man, and you don't have the time.
For bookseller Ryan.
Uh,
No, she's cool too. Thank you for all the books, Ryan. Jimmy says thank you.
For Colin.
Colin.
Nutrition is bullshit, Colin. And instead, you should eat hydrogenated fats and high fructose, corn syrup, and peanuts.
And peanuts,
Always
obviously.
peanuts.
And finally, Jason.
Jason. I'm gonna reach down for this one. Jimmy,
Yeah,
what?
really pull it
Jimmy,
out.
talk to me.
Jason, I know you feel sad. I know you are worried. And you are right to feel that way. It's all true.
Wow.
And we go.
Anything else, Jimmy? Anything else before you leave Mark's vessel?
I endorse Donald Trump for his presidency. He's gonna do a great job.
Wow. Okay. It was really
Get
good
out, spirit,
chatting.
out, vile spirit.
Really good.
Maybe put the
He
time code for this on the blog. People are gonna want to skip that.
I don't think they will. Uh it was really, really nice chatting with Jimmy. Really good
Oh, that was
insights
tough.
out there. How's your voice?
I'm not doing that again.
All right, well, we're gonna need to find a new connection to,
Very difficult.
the other side.
Leaves me drained. Have you never been to a medium or a spiritualist? It's the
It's
feeling afterwards, the draining afterwards. It is real. It's
it's
legitimate.
very true.
Clairvoyance fatigue is a real thing, and I'm going through it right now. And I don't feel as though you care.
No, I listen, I appreciate everything that you do here.
All right, good.
I know how much it wears on your body and your soul. So thank you for doing
Yes.
that for me and for our listeners.
Good. Are you reading The Reformatory, by the way?
I have it downloaded. I haven't started it yet.
Okay, just checking.
I am excited about it though.
Good.
Let's get into what we watched.
All right, let's do it. Because Slim Pickens, outside of
Yeah.
Timecop, listen. This isn't a bit, by the way. Do watch Timecop, listeners.
Mm.
it is it walks that line that very few major studio pictures walk, in that it is very, very odd. It is a very fucking weird film in a way that so many, I think, big pictures try and affect a weirdness and a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a left of center vibe. But Timecop really has it. It's such a strange film, dressed up in a kind of a, Bruckheimer kind of
Right.
clothing, but it's not. It's a really fucking bizarre movie.
Absolutely. So we endorse Timecop, but we're not going to
Yeah.
get too far into it here because we will spend an hour talking about it on our Ko-Fi soon.
Now, like I said, slim pickings, but the one I do want to mention, right, and I
Mm.
haven't logged it yet, because I haven't quite got to the end of it. Um, it won't come as any surprise to you to hear that I've watched Evil Dead 2 recently, okay?
Okay, sure. Yep.
But but the reason that I was so eager and gleeful to watch Evil Dead 2, well, I love Evil Dead 2, it's perfect. But I came across a torrent of what purported to be an extended cut of
Oh,
Evil Dead
okay.
2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's one of my little things. Ooh,
Yep.
one of those little things about me. If you can show me a cut of a movie that I love, with a couple of extra bits in it, fuck, I
Yeah.
will go head over heels for that.
And you'll
And
notice too.
oh, 100%, 100%. But the bits, and this is exactly what it purports to be, an extended cut of Evil Dead 2. And it's got some extra 2 minutes, more than
Mm,
2 minutes of extra bits in it.
that's a good amount.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's all stuff. It's all stuff that I knew was out there, but I'd never
Ah.
seen,
Oh,
right? Yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful stuff, a real find. Um, I vividly remember a Fangoria article from when I was a kid, or it might have been Dark Side magazine, one or the other, that had photos from Evil Dead 2 that weren't in the fucking film,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's like when you watch a trailer and it's like there's
Exactly.
like a scene in it and then it comes out and you're like, where was it? I was waiting
Exactly
for
this.
that.
Exactly this. And it had always been like a shard in the back of my mind. Where the fuck have they got that version of Evil Dead 2? Was it a screener that they had? Was it a pre-release cut that they saw? And at fucking last, I've seen a version of Evil Dead 2 that has those bits put in. Now, the bits that I've added are really bad quality, right? They
Of
are
course,
obviously
right.
from dailies or rushes or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they've been inserted into the film. The transfer that I watch is 1080. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely. I've always thought Evil Dead 2 in 4K and in high def was a lovely film. The blood is beautifully, the slick kind of, it's a wet film, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the fluids look really shiny, and you can see beautiful detail on the cloth, and some of the latex special effects, you can see the craft behind them, and I love all that.
Yeah.
So it's quite jarring when you cut to the extended material, and it's,
Right.
a scan of a scan of a scan of a VHS,
Right. Yeah.
but it's there, shots of the fantastic bit where the Deadites reveal themselves, and you've got Henrietta in the cellar, and you've got Ed starts to levitate, and they do that wonderful fucking bit of dialogue. We are the things that were and shall be again. We want what is yours, life. And Ash runs off. And he goes, help us, you filthy coward. And he's gone to grab an axe, obviously, because he's fucking Ash Williams.
Sure.
Um, and he has at Ed with the axe, and there's a couple of shots of Ed's fucking head cut in half. And the half of the head is on the floor, and it's an animatronic, and the eye is moving around in this chunk of his fucking head on the floor. Brilliant. Um, there's another sequence where he's in the cabin on his own, and Linda's head falls into his lap out of nowhere, and she's talking to him. There's this entirely removed animatronic, well, not even animatronic, like a puppet special effects sequence where like a demon tongue shoots out of her mouth into Ash's mouth, and he does his slapstick thing wrestling with this fucking rubber special effect. And it's look, for a fucking absolute Evil Dead diehard, and I'm looking right now at pieces, chunks of the One True cabin on top of my
Yeah.
fucking cupboard over there. I love this fucking film. It's the best fucking film. So to see a version of it that I'd never seen before really is fucking special as fuck to me.
Love that.
And yep, it was great. Um,
Ah, that's so delightful.
honestly, I can't stress enough. And so that means that now some of my all-time favorite movies. RoboCop now exists in its one true form. I've got those
Mhm.
extra fucking 8 seconds of A Nightmare on Elm
Yes.
Street back, you know what I mean? I've got a
Yeah.
couple of minutes of extra Evil Dead 2 in my life. And it matters, right? This
Hmm.
is shit that fucking matters to me, seeing the fullest versions of the fucking works I love. And look, all right, yeah, I can hear what you're saying, but Mark, they were probably cut for a reason, weren't they, Mark? Uh, yes, and that's true. But the very fact that they exist out there without having my eyes upon them, I cannot tolerate that. I will not allow it. So it's fantastic that I've been able to see these extra bits of Evil Dead 2. I loved it. It
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah, it
And they
filled up
probably
my
were cut for like gore reasons or something like that anyway, not for like artistic reasons. So,
do you know there's one particular shot in there where Evil Ash takes control and
Mhm.
Annie is watching him through the fucking cracks in the door of the cabin and he walks in this amazing kind of zombie walk that Bruce Campbell does and eats a squirrel. He grabs a squirrel off the floor and bites its head
Yeah,
off.
that's why it's not in the movie. Not
Fucking brilliant.
not because it's
Amazing.
yeah,
What it
it
is,
wasn't
it's an
wanted.
insight into the truth of the creative process. It's an insight
Right.
into what they had in mind that didn't quite
Hmm.
make it to the full transfer, you know. And it's
Yeah,
beautiful,
totally.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Love that. I wonder how that's been passed along, like you saw this stuff in Fangoria a million years ago or whatever,
Yeah,
but like who's had this
don't
all
know.
along? Who had that
Um,
cut?
doing a bit of reading, a little bit of Googling, a little bit of poking about, this stuff did make it to like a VHS version or a Laserdisc
Okay.
version out there somewhere in the past.
Right.
Like some fucking, German edition had
Yeah.
had this stuff in there. But it's yeah, finally been made available for internet thieves like me. So that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Big fan. Um, I did not watch anything that exciting this week. I watched Conclave finally, though, it's just kind of been drifting on the periphery of my awareness. The
That's
Rafe
you're on a
Fiennes.
Pope tip at the minute, aren't you? You're on a pure fucking Catholic thing right now.
By pure happenstance. I mean, I didn't ask them to put out a movie about the Pope right after I went to the Vatican. That was
Okay,
pure happenstance, or just
right.
before, I suppose. But everyone was talking about it, and I am on a surface level interested enough to watch it.
Um,
Uh,
did you watch what's it called again?
Conclave?
Conclave. Did you watch it after going through the portal? Or after
I went
seeing the
through the
mug
portal
bones?
and then I watched Conclave. No,
Did you go through the
unfortunately.
portal?
No, I didn't. It wasn't open yet when I
Okay.
was there. It
Okay,
literally
okay, okay.
opened the day I left
Okay.
Rome. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, listen to last week's episode.
Hmm.
But and I'm looking at my hot priests calendar right now on my wall that I just hung.
I'd like to see a
But
hot priest.
well, I've got 12 of them for you. So I'll send you a picture. But no, I have like a
They got their dicks out?
passing. No.
Okay.
No. I think these are like actual priests, I think,
Oh,
which
fine,
makes
fine,
it
fine.
infinitely funnier than it being like hot priests like fireman calendars or whatever. Like they are legitimately just attractive priests, and I find that
Fine.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I when I was like 18, I guess, I read Angels and Demons, the Dan Brown book. Like,
Hmm.
your wife reads those, right? Or read those, or am I getting
Uh,
that confused with other things?
I mean, yeah, we've both read them. I
Okay, you've
mean,
read them.
I
Yeah,
I wouldn't. It's an overstatement to say that we read them. You know.
sure. Okay, fair enough. I read the one book. I did not know it was connected to anything else. I found it like on a bookshelf in our house or something like that when I was 18. And I was fascinated by the idea of the conclave. And I remember I was driving with Ben to the airport, to the Oakland airport, and there was traffic. So it took us like 2 hours to get to the airport. And I spent that 2 hours autistically info dumping the entire book to him from
I
beginning
see.
to end. And so, like, as such, I have like a passing, I don't remember anything else that book was about now, but in that one day that I'd
I
finished
want to
it, it
say
was,
that's the one where the church gets hold of dark matter. Is that right?
did they? I don't remember that being a part of it, but maybe.
Uh,
I didn't remember there being anything sciency really about this book. I just remember the Conclave thing,
Right.
and the black smoke and the white smoke and all that kind of stuff. So that's about as far as my interest in this went. And I was like, that's enough interest to be like, yeah, I'll see what this is about. And this
Yeah.
movie is like, it's just something about it is just compelling enough that without being all that exciting or interesting, somehow it
Mm.
rivets you and keeps you watching it, which I think is cool. Like it has a very, as we've talked about many times, I've been watching so many movies from like the 90s and stuff like that lately, and it has a feel like that kind of like that kind of thriller, talky thriller that you would get, like a courtroom drama type thing, that sort of
Mm.
vibe from the 90s, but with a bunch of cardinals. And then there's like a major plot twist that I did not see coming at all in this movie. That was kind of, oh,
That's
um,
surprising in itself.
yeah, right? Like, seriously, I spent this whole movie like, where is this thing going here? And when it went, totally did not see it coming, but not in a way that's like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, no, that feels fine and earned. Um,
I mean,
so
I was, you know, younger, far younger when I read the Da Vinci Code. I haven't read Angels and Demons or anything else Dan Brown has done, but even younger me at the time, even a young, impressionable, naive me at the time, I remember vividly thinking, well, this is for simpletons. You know what I mean? This is fucking
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, I was 18 when I
yeah,
read it, so it's, a child reading this book. Um, and I think my perception of it was like, this is like, it's the stuff you pick up at the grocery store checkout. It's not supposed to
exactly. Yeah.
challenge you in any way. I've never seen any of the movies. I've never read any of the other books. It was just that one day that I sat and read that book.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just I thought Conclave was a good, just sort of solid piece of like intrigue, conspiracy, low key thriller that's super well acted because
Mm,
everyone in it is great.
mm,
And I thought like at the end I was kind of whatever on, but overall I was like, this was very compelling in a movie that shouldn't be compelling at all. That like on
mm.
paper is very boring. And so, big props to Conclave for getting past my like disinterest in it and being
Yeah,
compelling
it
enough
sounds
to
like you're
work.
talking about the kind of movie where it gets elevated on screen.
Hmm.
They
Yeah,
do a lot
absolutely.
with what they're given. Is that what you're
Yeah,
telling me?
if it
Yeah.
was, yeah, done differently, this could be the most boring thing you've ever seen, but it is absolutely the skill with which it's handled that makes this such a good movie. So I quite enjoyed Conclave. If it is in any way in people's wheelhouse, I think you're probably going to enjoy it.
Hmm.
It's kind of exactly what you expect of it, but just works really well.
Nice. Nice, Corrigan.
Um, yeah, the only other thing that I watched was Lockerbie. Well, sort of. I watched part
Oh
of it.
God.
So it's a mini series with Colin Firth
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about the Lockerbie
Yep.
disaster. I don't know, tragedy. Let's say tragedy because there's a lot involved in this.
Bombing. I mean,
Bombing, yeah, Lockerbie bombing, I guess. Um,
Laura is skewed that because she's already solved it. You know what I mean? She's already seen the episode of Air Crash Investigation. Uh, it's had pride of place on the kind of the Sky homepage on our fucking
uh-huh.
TV. Oh, Laura Lockerbie, that looks like your kind of thing. No, no, I know
No, no,
about it.
no. I already got
She's
this.
already solved that one. Fiction can add nothing to that one.
Well, yeah, the thing about this is I've considered talking about this as like an open for Joag before. I don't know that I'm sure at the time it had a lot of impact worldwide, but like now I don't think any American like or a standard anyone you just like ask on the street would have any idea what
Hmm.
happened here. And even I only knew like scant details or whatever. So like basically this, for those who don't know what happened, this is the late 80s, I believe.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing. I
Yeah.
seem to think it between maybe 87, 89,
Yeah, I would
and
say somewhere in that vicinity.
I even as a kid, I vividly remember Lockerbie. It was huge, huge,
Yeah, and
huge
it's
news for a long
horrifying.
time. Yeah.
I only basically knew that there was like a plane that was bombed and went down, which is, as a person who's terrified of flying, that's enough. That's terrifying in and of itself. I did not
Yeah.
realize like that also it killed a shit ton of people on the
It did.
ground, and like the impact that all of this had. And so this movie follows the father of one of the victims as he tries to sort of uncover, get like the government and everyone to, and TWA,
Mm.
or not TWA, Pan Am, to
It
acknowledge
was 88.
88, there we go.
Mm.
To acknowledge what happened, because basically it was like they had been warned that there was going to be a terrorist attack, and like this plane was like emptier than it should have been, because it seems like people knew who were like a part of the company and stuff like that. So why did that happen? And he's trying to uncover what the fuck happened here and have everyone acknowledge what's gone on. And I just found myself as I was watching it being like, I just want to watch a documentary on this. Like, how is this? It's like 6 episodes. And I was like, how can this be 6 episodes? And it moves at an
Mm.
absolute snail's pace. Like, there's so much of each episode that's just like slow music and people looking sad. There's even a point in the second episode where like the wife is talking about how like there would have been like 15 seconds that her daughter was aware that things
Oh,
were happening, and she slowly, to like this Pan Am represent, counts each second, but it's definitely slower than 15 seconds. It's like 1,
oh,
2, and they
no
do the
thanks.
whole thing. And it's like there's too much of this. So I don't know that I recommend Lockerbie. I mean, it's well acted and all of that stuff, but it was a slog. And I know that there is a documentary from like 2 or 3 years ago that unfortunately you can't get here. That is like the total be all end all that aired in your neck of the woods. And I want to watch that instead, because it is fascinating. It seems like a really
Yeah.
interesting and
Yeah.
devastating
And
story.
even more so in that prosecutions only happened like fucking 35 years later.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's only
Yeah,
just
exactly. Which is why
anything
they're
like
bringing
justice
it
has
up.
been seen for the
Yeah.
perpetrators of that. You know, that it's been an active case
Mm-hmm.
for that fucking long.
Yeah.
That in itself is incredible, I think.
Yeah, it seems like just a fascinating story. So hopefully, maybe I can get you to get it on the Plex, get the
Mm.
documentary, because it sounds really interesting. But I think maybe if you're like more connected to it already,
Mm.
then this would work. I read that like the guy who Colin Firth plays is like thrilled with it, absolutely loves how they portrayed this whole thing. But it was just a little too slow for me, where I was like, I want to know what happened. I am not, this is, I think it's hard when it comes to like true stories like that to watch
Yep.
a mini series when you're like, I want the facts and I
Yep.
don't necessarily want this dramatized. I just want
Well,
to
I
know
think
what
what you
happened.
want is air crash investigation, isn't it?
I
That's
want
that's what
aircraft.
you want. You
I
want
don't
that
want to
episode.
watch that though.
Okay.
I don't need the nightmares that would cause me. I don't want reenactments of what
No,
was
fair enough.
happening on the plane. I
CG
just want to know what
recreations.
happened.
The
Yeah.
CG recreations are very fun. I've walked in on a few of them, and they are a great laugh.
Now, there's only one thing that you saw aside from
Yeah.
these as well,
Yes.
which I saw
Look,
last week.
um, for you and I, disagreements on movies are
Yeah, par
commonplace.
for the course.
They've become something of a bit between us, haven't they?
Mom and dad are fighting.
Completely. Uh, but I think this occasion, the difference of opinion is more baffling to me than any other heretofore.
It's not to
I
me at all. I don't find this one baffling in the slightest.
I simply cannot understand how you can dismiss this film in the way that you have.
Oh, I could do it all day. All day.
I know, and there's a part of me that wants to really fucking rise to this, but I'm not gonna, right? Because
Uh-huh.
it's just a movie. It's just a fucking
It's just
movie.
a movie. Yeah.
But to me, it is a movie that is so demonstrably beautiful.
Hmm.
Like
If I could see it, I'd agree.
like the we're talking about Nosferatu just in case
Yeah,
there's any doubt,
Nosferatu.
right?
Sorry. Yeah, we did not say it.
I I how to put this? Many years back, right, when I watched Transformers in the cinema, right? Michael Bay's Transformers.
Mm.
I was so fucking irritated by this film, right?
Hmm.
I stepped out of the movie and I started objectively looking at the various ways in which it was awful, right?
Right.
And one of the things I found myself doing was counting the lengths of the shots in the film.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find a single shot that was over like a second and a half long, and it was fucking
Right.
irksome to me. I found myself doing something similar with Nosferatu, but in a completely different way. I challenged myself to find a single shot in this movie that wasn't beautiful, and I simply
Interesting.
couldn't. I simply couldn't. Every single shot of this film, and I fucking mean every shot, has either elegant symmetry. The symmetry of the fucking cinematography in this film is pervasive and perfect. It either displays beautiful symmetry or it displays fantastic framing of faces and figures. Shots are built immaculately. The fucking the use of shade and light, of color and tone is everything about this fucking film visually feels poured over and meticulously made as beautiful as possible.
Now, keep in
And
mind that my complaint was not the cinematography, aside from the fact that it's too dark and my eyes burned from trying to focus on anything. But other than that, I did not complain about that. And I said that I was like,
but
you are going to
does
love.
that alone not warrant more than a star, Corey?
No, because
Does the
everything
fucking
about the
the
rest of the
does
experience
the
is miserable for
effort
me.
and the fucking diligence that has clearly gone into this film not warrant more than a fucking meager star to
That's
you?
what the star is for. And then the
My
rest of this
goodness.
was
My goodness.
intolerable to me. I can't,
My
like, that's how I
goodness.
was like, I mean, that's why I say it doesn't baffle me because we look for very different things when it comes to a movie like this. And
Oh,
for me, like, I am not like the most visual human being on the planet. So while I can
mm,
appreciate something looking beautiful, that's like 10th place on what
my
I'm looking
goodness.
for in a movie. I want it to be like that. Like you can tell with like Wicked, it being ugly did completely take me out of it. So it's not that it doesn't matter, but everything else distracted me from what it looked like. And the fact, like I said, I could not see. It was so dark in so much of this that was
So
difficult for me.
what else then? Come on.
I mean, the acting is atrocious. It is just, it feels like they're all at a cosplay convention. And that is like nobody feels like they're from the time. It feels like they are from today, acting like it's then.
Based
Um,
on what?
what do you mean
How do
based
you
on
know
what?
that? How can you say that? Were you there? How
Well,
do you
as
mean?
in, like, it feels artificial, right? Like, it feels like if I were to put on a costume and be like, hello, today it is the 1800s in Germany, and I am definitely a German woman from the 1800s.
All right.
Like,
What did you
that
rate a Muppet
is,
Christmas Carol, Corey? Did you enjoy that?
of course, I have a Muppet Christmas Carol. It's a
Well, that's
bunch of
affected as fuck.
puppets.
That's
Yeah,
affected in a
they're
very similar
puppets.
way.
They are not trying to act like real people. They are puppets, as opposed to human beings who are trying to embody real people, perhaps in an
I don't
elevated
know if they are, you
situation.
know? I mean, you've got a melodrama about a fucking vampire as an allegory for fucking
Right.
shame and the plague.
And I think you
Are
can
they
do
trying
like
to embody
say
real people?
let's take like Willem Dafoe for example, who is
Yes,
like
let's.
super over the top
By all
and bananas
means,
in this.
let's.
And that I can get behind because he is clearly doing a thing, whereas the other ones just feel like inauthentically doing people. Like
So
that's
you don't even think that there's room in your one star. You don't. Some of the fucking dialogue that Willem Dafoe delivers, some of the incredible
yeah,
fucking
is
dialogue.
delightful, but when it's I hate every other moment from the rest of the movie. I can't be like, yeah, yeah, no, it's made up for by a single character. It's like, okay, well, I am everything else around him is a misery to watch, and I want to not be in this movie theater more than anything I've ever wanted in the world. It's
Oh,
like it
I
felt
don't.
interminable.
Is this a bit
It's not
a
a bit
little
at
bit?
all. Like I told
Is
you, like
it?
this was my sister said the same thing. She was like I was considering whether it would be okay to get up and have a cigarette or if that was rude. And then as I was leaving the theater that like everyone else was saying the same thing. It's not a bit. It is absolutely how I felt watching this movie.
Corey,
It
he's
just
seen things that would make Sir Isaac Newton
right.
crawl back
Great
up into
line.
his mother's
Yeah.
womb.
And that's one of the things, like the tonal confusion in there with
So
like
good.
someone who is so funny in that role, like Willem Dafoe, and then no, it's like a rape drama. The rest of it is like not on the, like, it's not the same thing. Those are two separate movies happening here. And then the other thing is just the way it's structured, where I just wanted to like get involved in any scene and get attached to any person. But it is set up that you get like 2 minutes of something and there's like next person and next thing happening, next thing. I was like, I don't give a fuck what
It's an
happens to
ensemble
any
piece,
of
yeah.
these people. Right, it's an ensemble, but you can have a full scene without being like, here's one thing that's happening, and then in the middle of it, let's just
Oh
switch
no,
over to somebody
again,
else.
I don't agree. There was a definite through line with the kind of the financial hard times
I mean, there's a
that
through line. It's Dracula. I can follow the story. It's Dracula. I wanted to be in a scene long enough for me to care about any of these people, where it's kind of shortcut for that was like, this character says he can't resist this character. Okay, cool. So I guess they're in love. And these two people, they've just been married. So I guess they're in love. Like, these weren't built up characters that you got to like know and care about. They're just
mm,
like, you just understand who they are because it's Dracula. You know this story. And so I get that, but
man,
in the movie I did
it's
not care.
incredible.
You could have slaughtered all of them in one fell swoop at the end of it and I would have been like, "Okay."
It's incredible to me. It's incredible to me when what I saw was a meticulously planned and executed movie where
Again,
I
I
was
didn't say it's not that.
crystal clear on why people were doing what they were doing, all the way
Again,
from
I
the
know
fucking
this story.
beginning.
It's not that it's not
I'm not talking about the
clear.
story. I'm not talking about the story. I'm talking about why characters act in the way they do, right? What
Mm.
the cause and effect, what is leading to people making the choices that they make.
Right, and that's not what I'm questioning either. The
I thought,
story
sure, that's
is
literally what you
clear.
just said.
No, 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 no. I'm saying I want a moment to sit in the story and like take in what these characters are thinking and feeling and finish a thought and not be like,
Mm.
okay, now let's switch to the next scene that's happening completely somewhere else and
You're
do something
describing
completely different.
you're describing a choppy, fast-paced movie, which this is not.
It's
It's nothing
not.
but moments
It
to
is
let
choppy,
things
but it's not
land.
fast paced. It's
No,
very choppy.
of course it isn't. But you're describing there's no time to let moments breathe. There's no time to understand people. It's bang, 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 one thing to another. The fucking the landscape tells you a story. The way the characters are fucking situated next to one another
Right.
tells you a
And that's the
story.
thing is like, yes, I understand visually these things are like there, whatever, but that's not, like I get that. However,
Mm,
I wanted to understand these people on a level beyond simply, I am looking at them and I understand what cinema is, so I can read that I wanted to actually like feel that they were being developed
mm,
in some way. And I just felt like this story didn't let me like sit in any scene because it was always like it didn't go linearly, right? Like, and that's again my complaint is not that this was haphazard or thrown together. I think it's exactly the movie he wanted to make. It does
yep.
not work for me because I don't like movies like that. Right? Like that is not, I don't want to like languish in the scenery but not have any sense of who people are or whatever. What's most
Mm,
important to me is the characters in something. And if the characters don't feel real and I don't get to see them fleshed out, like all I get to see this whole movie is like moving from place to place and Nicholas Hoult breathing heavily and crying
mm,
and Lily Rose Depp screaming and crying and like, all these kinds of things. It's just like that's not enough for me to care what's going on in this, which again is why I say it's not that weird that we see this so differently because we're looking for completely different things in the movie. You want to languish in like the setting and like really appreciate like, oh, this looks this way and I see the intentionality of the shots. And that's all good and well to me, but I want to engage more with real characters in something than I care about how well that's all set up. Like that's great, that's good, but I am like more invested in a thing this movie was not trying to do, right? Like it's not that it failed at what it was trying to do, it's that it is not trying to do the thing that I like. That's the difference.
Listen, I hear you loud and clear. I do. But I mean, I don't even agree with your kind of thesis that the film isn't trying to do that. I feel as though it's serving us up some pretty well fucking fleshed out characters and having them react to this incredible unfucking, uncanny supernatural state of affairs. How would you react? You know what I mean?
Again, it's
What
not
is a
it's not the
realistic
reaction, it's
to
that I
something
don't
like that?
believe that they're people. Like there's nothing about the way they act that acts like human beings. So their reaction is a moot point. I don't know who they are. This is a couple of people who my introduction to them is just them screaming, crying, and being wet all the time, right? Like if you
Not the
think
case,
about
though.
Dracula,
It's misrepresentation.
if you think about Dracula, right? The beginning of Dracula, you basically have Jonathan Harker writing a food blog, right? And so you
Sure,
get
yeah.
really deeply into like, who is he? What does he think about? What does he care about? And he's writing to Mina, and you understand like what is the core of their relationship, right? Like I am invested already in the first 20 pages of Dracula in this person's entire inner life. That's not in Nosferatu. What you get from them is they like to kiss each other and like she's worried about him leaving. And that's not enough. I don't care. I don't care about just any couple, right? Like just that they are
So
in
you
love with
didn't
each other is not enough for me.
so you didn't get his ambition, you didn't get his desire to provide for their life together, you
Yeah,
didn't
and that's
get the
basic.
tension that
Everybody
came from
has
his having
that.
to borrow money from his friends, you didn't get
Yeah.
his kind of
No,
ambitions
I
for their
get all
family.
of that, but that is
But what is
any
that?
person.
What more? I don't know what more. I don't know what fucking more.
I
One
just told you I
star.
want to know their internal life, and that's not in this movie, at
Okay.
least not the way that I want to see it.
You gave
That
Timecop 2.5 stars.
I did. I would watch Timecop every day for the rest of my
Oh,
life before
stop.
watching Nosferatu one more time.
Fuck off.
It's true. I never want to see it again. It was
Okay.
miserable. It was a terrible
Oh,
time, and
okay.
it felt like it was 8 hours long.
Okay.
You get so mad at me when I don't
I'm not
like your
mad. I'm really not.
favorites.
I'm not. No, no, no. Listen, that is not what this is. And I'm not mad. I'm, I'm, what's the word? Confounded, I guess, at how you could have seen the same movie as I did and been left as wanting as you were.
I mean, I do feel like the thing is, I'm confounded too, is how anyone could watch that and take any enjoyment from it. So like, I understand from the opposite end of
You
it.
didn't
I
even
like that
like
as a
Orlok's funny little mustache, did you? You
oh,
didn't even enjoy that.
like, why does he have a mustache?
Why not?
Why? And
Why
why does
not?
he sound like Nandor? Oh
Right.
man,
So, can
it's
I just
so
address his
terrible.
voice a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Because, there's been dialogue, there's been, talk about his fucking choices vocally. And I
Yeah,
love that. I
hated
loved
him
his
on
voice.
every level. I
Right.
wanted someone to not sound like they needed an inhaler that entire movie.
But that's exactly it. Orlok is a corpse forcing air
Yeah.
through dead
I'll give
flesh.
that to him.
That's how
Nobody
he
else
would
has an
fucking sound.
excuse.
He's like a bagpipe, essentially,
Yeah,
pretending to be a man.
horrible.
He's forcing air through his fucking vocal cords. He doesn't have a voice. He's affecting one. And
Yeah.
perfect, perfect, perfect.
Sure. I'll give him that, although the accent is still stupid. Everybody else needed to calm down for a second. So it was like, it didn't matter what the scene was. It was like nothing is happening. And they're like, I was like,
I'll
Jesus
agree that
Christ.
Eggers needs to fucking calm down. He
Yeah.
needs to calm down and stop being such a mad fucking lad. He needs to rein it in for 5 minutes and stop making bangers. That's what he needs to fucking. He's the only one who needs to calm down because he's making everybody else look stupid.
I don't know. I'm sure I'll like his next one more.
Plus, I found it funny in the same way I found The Lighthouse funny.
Oh, see, I
Um,
was really hoping it would go Lighthouse with it, and it just felt
I
tonally like
thought that
it
it did.
didn't maintain enough of that. It just wasn't
Didn't,
even enough for that.
and do you know, I'm even thinking it might get a 5 now. I'm really talking it through because I haven't spoken it through with anyone really. I haven't talked it through with
Mm,
anyone because obviously Laura ain't,
yes,
you know.
not
Uh,
interested.
But even the fucking sound design, the slurp gulp when he's
Hmm.
hunched over fucking, Nicholas Hoult drinking of him when he's slurping and gulping his fucking juices. Just love it.
Also, can I just say, like, amongst the I said last week about my unintentional laughter at Aaron Taylor Johnson, the other thing that made me laugh unintentionally was the when he bites the head off of the pigeon, it's just like a clear plastic tube of blood coming out of it. I was like, come on. Come on. I can't believe they kept that in the movie. Like that effect didn't work. Just cut it.
I
We get it.
will not rest until I find the pigeon cut of Nosferatu. I want to see more pigeon
It
gore. I
was
won't
blown away.
rest.
That one I wasn't the only one who laughed out loud on. That was like the whole theater laughs. What was
Yeah,
Come on, get it together.
you
But
wildin'.
okay. I have one thing left for this
Okay.
episode. To close us out here. This was a question that came to me before we watched Timecop, but actually works really well with us having watched Timecop.
Okay.
So, Mark, say that you are from the past or from the future, one of those things, and you happen upon or create a time machine.
Great.
And
Okay, great.
now you're moving through time, buddy.
Oh
You're
God.
landing somewhere else. You
Yeah.
get there, and for one reason or another, you encounter someone and you have to convince them that you are, in fact, from a different time.
Oh my God.
How do you do it? What's your strategy?
All right. This is a great question. Can we just establish parameters?
Yeah, please.
What do I have about my person?
Well, that's up to you because I figure wherever you've come from, right? You've planned this. You know you are going to land somewhere else, and there is the possibility that you
Yeah,
are going to have to explain yourself. So what would you bring? What would help with this process? And I think it makes a difference too. Let's go, you're from the past to the future and future to the past because I think it's easier to convince people you're from the future because you might have a phone in your pocket or something, right?
exactly this. I mean that's your go-to, isn't it? That's the first
Right.
thing you would go to. Um, if I'm from the past,
Yeah, that's the harder one. How do you convince someone
yes.
you
How do
came
I
from the
convince somebody
past?
that I am from the past? Now, if I can plan this out,
Hmm.
can I have multiple trips back and forth, or is it just I'm there in
It's just the
one?
once. Like, let's say you get there and your time machine malfunctions, and you've got this. And let's say, I don't want to say planned as in like, oh, I just keep a newspaper with the
Mm,
date on it in my pocket. Like, let's say you don't have a bunch of
conceptually,
stuff on you. You need to explain to someone somehow
because
that you are from the past.
if I was from the past and I was able to plan this,
Right.
I would make a few trips and tail them throughout
Mm.
different phases of their life and tell
Okay,
them
that's pretty
shit
good.
only they would know. Only
Right.
I would know,
Yeah.
like when you
Or
were
meet
9,
them at another time and be like,
exactly
remember you
like
had this
Doctor Who.
conversation.
Doctor
Hmm.
Who does this. You won't be a shock to hear. Doctor Who does this loads of times.
Yeah.
The Doctor just steps out and gives somebody his tie, and then goes to the future and goes, "Obviously, I'm from the past. Remember that guy who gave me your tie to me." Um,
Right.
but fuck, that is an excellent,
Yeah. So let's say you
excellent
don't have
question.
that kind of planning. You have crashed, your time machine's broken, and now the first person you see or something like that, you have to explain to them, I'm from the past. What evidence do you give?
See, my my initial assessment of this question, particularly from the past going forward, is that you couldn't do it.
Right. I mean, this is like, this is why I thought about it is like, okay, in movies, this is always like the thing, right? They have to figure out how to convince someone they are who they say they are, but that's really difficult. What would you do?
Is there, and I'm kind of maybe directing this towards Eileen. Hi, Eileen. Is there a science way of like
Mm.
maybe pricking your finger and getting some
Yeah, like
blood and
carbon dating you.
demonstrating how old you are.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is could I, is there a little strip or a little test, like a blood sugar thing or a skin fucking, decay test that
Mm.
will demonstrate categorically to somebody that I'm from 10 years back?
Right. Yeah. So, okay, a test of some sort, which we don't know if that exists.
And I can't bring anything with me, so I couldn't bring like a chunk of a building which isn't there anymore.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you could get that anywhere, right? You could have just stolen it from a museum or something.
Uh, I mean, from the future back, that is a lot easier. Or is
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Or is
Well,
it? Or is it? If I
mm,
can't bring any collateral with me,
sure. You
then I
could
could
know
just,
something, right?
yeah, yeah. But if some dickhead came up to me and said, "I'm from the future. In 10 years, you'll do this," I could just be a very, an author or a fantasist or
Sure.
delusional.
Yeah, well, that's like you get in like Back to the Future, right? It's like being able to predict like the outcome of a baseball game or something like that.
Yes.
So if you could, or in Frequency, the dad is watching the Mets game and the son is able to tell him what's going to happen in that Mets game that he's watching. So
Yeah.
like potentially if someone told you the date, um you could be like, well, this is going to happen
Yeah.
tomorrow or whatever. If I'm wrong, then okay, I'm lying or whatever. You'd have to have a good grasp of where you were going for sure, to be able to
Yeah.
know what
Yes.
was going to happen soon enough for someone to be able to tell.
And the ability to illustrate your point, you'd have to have like a TV or a radio or something, or like you said, a paper.
Hmm.
I can at least conceive of ways it would be possible where I future boy going back
Yeah.
rather than past guy going forward, because that's tough. That's a tough one,
Yeah, right? That's a difficult one. Like, because
particularly with one trip.
anything that you have, theoretically, you could get from somewhere, right? Like, you could rob a
Yeah.
museum or something like that. Like, there's no way to say, oh, I have this and it could only be from me having come from that time.
Like something that had been completely obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but nah, how do you prove it? I can only think of how could you demonstrate that with your own physical self? And
Right.
is there, I'm sure there must be a way of a little test you can carry around in your pocket, that'll measure your
Yeah,
age.
that
Oh,
would
fuck, there's probably
measure that
not,
kind
is there?
I doubt that that is a thing. If
Age
that were a thing,
test
I feel like it'd be a lot easier
science.
to tell. Like they wouldn't need dental records and shit to identify people when they died or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, I guess, but they do know when. No, that's like decomp and stuff like that. This was in the book as well.
Why'd you
Yeah.
ask? What would you do then?
Oh, I didn't have like an answer for it
Ah,
necessarily. That's why I asked, because I thought this was really interesting, like especially from the past to the future. Like if you acted like you didn't know, like if you didn't know what stuff was, people could think you were just putting on an act. Like, of course you know what
hmm.
this thing is or whatever. Um, like there'd be no, it'd be really hard to demonstrate that
Yes,
you
beyond
genuinely
doubt.
don't know things or um that you were like I guess maybe if you were time traveling and you knew you were time traveling, I
Yep.
guess there could be things that people don't know about today that you could bring up
Yes.
that maybe someone could research and find or something like that. But you'd have to know what people
Yep.
don't know now.
like like something obscure about, geopolitics in another country
Hmm.
or share prices
Yeah.
or, weather patterns.
Weather patterns or another thing, I think Frequency does this probably pretty well too, but again it's like he knows. So the dad shoves something under um like a floorboard in the
Yeah,
house
yeah,
that the
yeah.
son lives in the past, so that nobody's touched that in all those years, and then when he pulls up the floorboard, the stuff is there from
Yep.
the past. So potentially, like if you left something somewhere in the past that someone could dig up like a time capsule and be like, this has clearly been
Oh,
untouched for.
that's a good idea.
That might be the ticket. You have to prepare by putting a time capsule somewhere and someone being able to find that it has been untouched
Far
since
more
that
difficult
time.
though is if I'm sat here in my living room and a fucking vortex opens and sends me, to 2028.
Yeah,
Fuck.
then what?
Pinky promise. That's all you got,
Right.
really.
You get snapped or whatever. I don't know. It's a thought that we probably will never have to deal with, but maybe we will. Maybe someday a vortex will open up and zap us into the future. And what are we going to do to let people know we come from the past and we need help
Well,
fixing our time machine or whatever?
bold of you to assume there'll be a future.
Yeah,
That's what I would say
it's
there.
probably, best case scenario is to be going backwards. I don't know what year is like the best one to go to, but well, that's a whole other question. What year,
All
if you were
right,
to
that
time
is
travel
another
to
question. Yeah.
any year,
If you could go
what
only
would it be?
forward, where
Mm,
would you go? Because
ooh, well, I
anything
mean, I guess
past
we
like
don't know that
40,
then.
50 years, it's going to be grim as fuck.
Right,
And
yeah,
anything lower than that, what's the point?
right. Well, and even like, okay, let's say you want to get to the most optimal year. The end of the world is coming, right? 30 years if we don't figure shit out. We're at 3C and everything has gone to shit. So things
Mm.
are getting worse or whatever. In the years that have happened, if it's 2060, 2050 and everything is going to hell, what year do you go back to have the
Yeah.
least fucked up life you could
Well, that's very
have?
objective. For me, it's somewhere in the mid 90s, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When everything was awesome. Music was great. I had a
Right.
SNES. Um,
Is that how you say it, or is that how other people say it?
well, SNES,
SNES, yes. Is that a you thing, or do other people
Super
say that?
Nintendo Entertainment System,
Yeah.
commonly known as the SNES over here. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard anyone say it like that. I figured out what
Cute.
you were saying just,
Yeah.
by process of elimination or whatever, but I've never heard anyone say it like that.
Oh, it's nice. But yeah, I would certainly pick the mid 90s.
Mm, yeah. I mean, that's like on the one hand being like a kid at that time. It was a good time to be a
Mm,
kid, but then I think about like the 2000s. Like I guess you could stay in a year, maybe
mm.
that would be like because the 2000s were terrible. So like I wouldn't want to do that again. It's like there's
For you or generally?
generally, yeah,
Okay.
2000s were a god awful time. Like to be a woman, particularly a woman
Sure,
or
sure, sure,
girl, is a
sure.
terrible time. And you got the Iraq War and all kinds of shit happening at that point. It's not
Mm.
great for most people, but uh, there's a book by Kurt Vonnegut called Timequake. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't read Timequake. I've read a bunch of his other stuff, but not Timequake.
It's a horrifying premise. In Timequake, there is this thing he calls a timequake, and it causes everyone to relive the last 10 years of their life, but they can't change anything. So they're aware that they're
Oh, of
reliving
what's
the
coming.
last 10 years,
Yeah.
but they have to, their bodies, everything just goes through the motions of
Oof.
what they did the last time. So all the same mistakes that they made, everything going on in the world, nothing can be changed. They just have to relive that time over again.
Mm.
It's truly, truly awful concept, which also causes, when time picks back up again, everyone has gotten so used to being on autopilot that like
Mm.
everyone who's driving and things like that just like crashes their car because they're not used to like being in control of their lives over the past decade. Um,
I think on balance, that wouldn't be all that bad. There would be downers, but
but to
and
be
uppers.
trapped, unable to
But oh
unable
yeah,
to
I mean,
change anything
yeah,
while
the being
aware
locked
that it
in
was
bit
happening
that
again.
would be horrible. But most of the last 10 years wasn't so bad for me.
Right, yeah. Like it's not a bad time. I just wouldn't necessarily want to just like live it on autopilot.
Yeah, as an observer, as a passive kind of
Right.
yeah.
Friends, let us know two things. If you were from the past, how would you convince
Prove it.
a modern person? How do you prove it?
Mm.
And If you were living in 2050 and the world is going to shit, what year would you travel back to try to have the best rest of your life that you possibly could?
Such loaded questions, such insight, Corrigan. Very nice, very nice.
You
And
know, I do what I do.
I would close off by saying, look, yes, it's fucking cold and dark and dreary, but we'll get through it together. You,
Mm.
me, CoRri, we're
Mhm.
gonna do this, and we're gonna do it with style.
That's right, we are. God
Fuck yeah.
damn it. Go ahead and stay spooky.
Stay spooky.